This was never a love story at first. It was a clinical case of trauma recognizing trauma. Damien does not choose Avery out of affection. He chooses her because control is his native language. His behavior reflects classic coercive dominance wrapped in polished wealth. Surveillance, pressure, emotional distance, strategic dependency. Avery, meanwhile, does not simply stay because of money. She stays because desperation distorts danger. And proximity to power can feel like safety when a person has been cornered long enough. But then the pathology shifts. The manipulator develops attachment. The subject becomes indispensable. And what begins as a transactional bond evolves into the most unstable thing in a violent ecosystem. Genuine emotional need.
So get this. Avery Lane wakes up shackled to some crime boss who gives her a twisted choice. Play his wife for 6 months or he'll burn her entire world to the ground. Their Vegas deal kicks off a hurricane of violence. Spoiler, she bolts, leaves him for dead, then haunts his recovery wondering if love can even exist in all this chaos. Our story starts the moment her life explodes. The first thing she feels is silk. And we're not talking fake luxury. This is the real deal, like liquid money, and costs more than her monthly bills combined. Next, the harsh Nevada sun blasts through huge, unfamiliar windows. The third shock is the rock on her finger, a massive alien diamond that screams judgment. She jolts upright and her head just erupts in pain. A killer hangover hits, the room starts spinning, and a bass drum is going off behind her eyes. Her mouth tastes like cheap booze and a string of bad decisions. Then she sees a silk dress she's never owned. "Oh, God," she whispers, basically chanting, "No, no, no." The room is massive and sterile, smelling of generational wealth. Moody walls are covered in pricey art, and the furniture looks like it was ripped from a design magazine. This is a galaxy away from her apartment in Henderson, a place she was never supposed to be. Avery puts her feet on the floor and a voice slices the silence. "You're awake." She whips around, vertigo nearly taking her down. And there, framed in the doorway, is a total stranger, tall, dark-haired, and dressed impeccably for any time of day. His face is carved from stone, but his gaze locks onto her with a scary intensity. His eyes, the color of steel, are all business, like a predator sizing up its prey, giving nothing away. "Who the hell are you?" Avery's voice is just a raw croak. "Damien Vascari," he says, like the name is a full explanation. "Your husband." Those 2 words detonate in his quiet room. He walks in like he owns everything, the air included, and her too, apparently. He holds out a folded paper. A marriage license from Clark County, issued only 3 hours ago. Avery stares at it like it's a pissed-off rattlesnake. "No way." "The Bourbon Street Wedding Chapel. You used cocktail napkins for a veil. Heard your vows were very moving." His voice is deadpan, but there's a serious threat under it. "Don't you remember?" "I don't remember things that never happened." "The state of Nevada says otherwise." She snatches the paper and sees the proof. Her own signature. It's a drunk, messy scrawl, but it's hers. Next to it, his name, Damien Vascari. The timestamp says 2:47 a.m. "This is insane!" Her hands are shaking. "Yeah, it's not binding. We can get an annulment right now." "We could," Damien allows, arms crossed with an air of total calm. "Or you could consider my proposal." "Consider your proposal," she barks out a laugh of disbelief. "I wake up in a stranger's room wearing—" She points to the slip. "Did you put me in this?" "My staff did. You spilled champagne on your other dress." "Oh, fantastic. That clears it all up." "Sit." "Excuse me?" "Sit." It wasn't a question. The raw command in his voice just deflates her. She slumps onto the bed, gripping the certificate like a cursed object as Damien closes the gap to stand over her. He just stands there, hands in his pockets, watching her like she's a puzzle he's solving. I will say this one time, he starts. Listen up. Last night we were legally married. That's a fact. I don't remember it either, but the paper is real. I've got two options for you. First, I file for an annulment. We chalk it up to a mistake and you go back to your life. Fine. Yes, I'll take that. The second option, he plows on, completely ignoring her, is you stay my wife for 6 months. You play the part for my social circle. In return, I wipe your debts, give you a place to live, and you walk away with $500,000. Avery just gawks at him. What? My words were clear. You are completely out of your mind. I'm pragmatic. He cocks his head, his face a total blank. You're failing, Miss Lane. Student loans, maxed out credit cards, your mother's medical bills. You are 90 days behind on your rent and you're getting evicted next week. You're working 2 jobs and still drowning. An icy void opens in her stomach. How do you know that? I know everything. That is disturbing. It's thorough. He moves toward her. Avery shrinks away. He pauses, his expression unreadable. I need a wife. You need to be saved. It's just a transaction. Why? Her voice is so small. Why would someone like you need a wife? You have... She gestures around vaguely. You have money and power. What could I possibly offer? My family has certain expectations. His words are short. My grandfather built an empire. His health is going. He wants to see me settled, looking normal. I don't have time for messy emotions. I don't want a curious or emotional wife. You are convenient. You are desperate. And legally, you belong to me right now. I don't belong to anyone. Then you are free to leave. He pulls out his phone and shows her the screen. This is what happens if you walk away. On the screen is her entire financial disaster. Account balances, overdue bills, warnings from collectors. The complete digital map of her failure, a deep and personal violation, and every bit of it is true. You can't do this, Avery whispers. I'm not doing a thing. I'm giving you a choice. That's not a choice. It's blackmail. Call it whatever you want. He pockets his phone. You have 10 seconds to decide. 10 seconds? I run a tight schedule. You're a devil. 8 seconds. Avery gets to her feet, hating her weakness, hating this man who just ripped her life open and is now using every scar against her. And if I refuse, she asks, trying to sound brave. Then you can go. There's a car ready to take you home. The annulment will be filed before 5 p.m. We'll never see each other again. And if I accept, you become Mrs. Viscari for a period of 6 months. You'll live here. You will be my +1 to social and business events when I tell you to. You will ask no questions. You will not argue. You will follow my orders without question. When it's over, you will leave, rich and free. That's prostitution. No, Damien says, his tone like ice. That is the definition of marriage. But phantom alerts are screaming in her head. Past due, final notice, eviction, the nursing home's calls about her mom's bill, her boss's warnings about her job performance. She pictures her tiny apartment, the ceiling stained from leaks, the broken heater. She imagines eating instant ramen for dinner again because a real meal costs too much. She sees her mother's vacant stare, her mind slipping away because Avery can't pay for the care she needs. Why me? She asks quietly. A matter of bad luck. We were both wasted, you agreed. This situation makes you useful. I despise you. You don't know enough about me, too. I know plenty. Damien glances at his watch. Your time is up. What's your decision? Avery's eyes drop to the ring. It splits the light into 1,000 colors on the floor like a crack opening in her soul. A crack just big enough for all her desperation to flood through. 6 months, she says, her voice flat. 6 months, and then you let me go. You will be let go. Lifting her chin, she looks him dead in the eye and nods once. All right, I accept. A tiny flicker of something finally crosses his face. It wasn't quite a smile, more like the shadow of satisfaction. Excellent. We'll start immediately. 2 hours later, she's staring at the contract. Avery is sitting in a cold, formal room packed with awkward furniture and too much art, with a pile of documents in front of her. The lawyer, a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled back and a look of pure boredom, had dropped them there. Read this carefully, she'd said. Initial every single page. I don't have a lawyer. Not necessary. The terms are perfectly clear, but terms were almost never clear. A small smirk played on the lawyer's lips. You're sharper than you let on. A compliment, maybe. Avery's eyes flew across the pages. The wall of legalese was headache-inducing, but the core rules were brutally simple. 6 months of required public appearances. No cheating. Clause 7B was underlined in thick ink. No talking to the press, no getting friendly with Damien's business partners outside of official events. The payoff? All debts immediately cleared, a $10,000 monthly allowance, and a final payout of $500,000. This is absolutely insane, Avery muttered. It's ironclad, the lawyer shot back. So check it. The Viscari family doesn't do things by halves. A lesson Avery was learning the hard way. The contract on the table wasn't just paper, it was the blueprint for her new cage. She gets her own room, but has to play house in Damien's suite whenever the clan gets together. A public performance of her private surrender. Her entire image was up for grabs, a stylist, a personal shopper, a whole team to build the perfect puppet. Then came the penalty clause, a literal financial death sentence. If she messes up, the debt is double whatever he spent, plus lawyer's fees. And if he breaks the rules, Avery asks. He won't. But what if? The lawyer's face was stone. He will not. Avery stared at the signature line, her hand shaking again. This was it. The moment she signed, Avery Lane, the teacher drowning in debt, would be history, replaced by Avery Viscari, a stranger's wife in a world she couldn't possibly understand. A vision of her mom flashed in her mind. The crushing debt, the fear of being on the street, the cold, hard truth that the system is rigged against the poor. She signed her name. The lawyer silently gathered the papers, locked them in a briefcase, and stood. A pleasure welcoming you to the family, Mrs. Viscari. That's not funny. I wasn't trying to be. Damien showed up at noon, minus his suit jacket. In just a white shirt and slacks, he almost looked normal, but the frozen tundra in his eyes was still there. Your things are being moved, he stated flatly. My assistant has the details. You have 1 week to get anything personal from your old apartment. You're evicting me. Your home is here now. I never agreed to this. He just arched an eyebrow. You put your name on the contract. I signed it 5 minutes ago. Then let me officially welcome you to your new home. He checked his watch, a move that was getting real old, real fast. We're having dinner with my family tonight, 7 o'clock on the dot. Pick something appropriate. I don't own anything appropriate for your kind of dinner. You will soon. The stylist gets here in 20 minutes. Avery stood up, the headache roaring back to life. Can you just stop for 1 second and admit how totally twisted this is? No. Why would I? Saying it won't change a thing. You made your choice. I made mine. We're both trapped by them. You chose nothing, she shot back. You engineered a hostile takeover. It's the same thing, functionally. It is not even close to the same thing. Damien just watched her for a long, quiet moment, and Avery felt like she was crumbling under his gaze. It wasn't mean. It was just blank, the way you'd look at an object before putting it on a shelf. My family is complicated, he finally said. They will search for a weakness. Give them nothing, don't have an opinion. Just smile, nod, and let me talk. So I'm supposed to be a prop. You are my wife. Same thing. This time, a muscle by his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but in the same zip code. You catch on fast. The stylist was a tiny woman named Simone, a walking hurricane of nonstop chatter and strong opinions. She sized Avery up in one glance and sighed, like Avery's existence was a personal insult. This is a monumental project, Simone announced. What's so wrong with me? How much time have you got? Avery was then put through 2 hours of what Simone called critical intervention. Hair, makeup, clothes. When it was over, Avery didn't even know the woman in the mirror. This reflection was polished, elegant, and screamed expensive. She was in a black gown worth more than her old car, heels that made her legs look incredible, and jewels that practically buzzed with financial power. An improvement, Simone declared, circling her like a vulture. Not perfect, but better. Thank you. Of course. Now your posture. Straighten up. No slouching. You are the wife of Damien Viscari, not some cubicle worker. And the difference is? Roughly $40 million and a much higher threat level. Avery froze. Threat level? Simone just waved the question away. That's not my department. Now, walk? My walk is fine. Your walk is forgettable. We need an air of royalty. I'm a teacher, not a princess. You're a Viscari now, same thing. By 7 p.m., Avery was standing in the marble foyer of Damien's mansion, wearing a fortune and feeling like a complete imposter. Her restless hands were a dead giveaway. Damien appeared at the top of the massive staircase, back in a full suit, moving with a practiced smoothness that screamed a lifetime of formal events. Are you ready? He asked. No. Excellent. Let's go. The ride was a black Mercedes with buttery leather and a driver who operated in total silence. Damien was a solid presence beside her, his face lit by the cold glow of his phone as Avery watched the Las Vegas Strip melt into a neon smear outside the tinted window. From inside the car's quiet opulence, the city seemed like a distant show, a life she was no longer part of. Where are we going? She asked the silence. My grandfather's estate. How many golden cages does this family own? 3 in Nevada, 2 in California, and 1 in Italy? Of course you do, she thought sarcastically. He finally turned his head toward her. Nervous? He asked. Terrified is a better word. Don't be. They are just people. The lie tasted like poison in her mouth. The wealthy are never just people. A tiny muscle in Damien's jaw twitched. You might have a point. The estate proved her right. A massive Mediterranean villa in Summerland, loaded with gates, guards, and enough staff to populate a small town. The driveway was a parade of high-end cars, Bentleys, Maseratis, and a Rolls-Royce that belonged in a museum. Damien's driver pulled to the front where a valet instantly appeared to open Avery's door. Showtime, Damien whispered. He got out before offering her his hand. His touch was warm, his grip solid, and when her heel caught in the doorframe, he steadied her without a word. For just a split second, their eyes met, and Avery saw something shift in his. It wasn't warmth, but it wasn't ice either. "Stay close," he said, his voice low, "and remember that you are completely in love with me. I don't even know you. They don't need to know that." The huge doors swung open before they reached them, revealing a woman in her 60s with eyes that could shatter concrete and features to match. She wore diamonds like they were body armor, and her gaze scanned Avery, leaving her feeling completely dissected. "Damien," the woman said, "you kept us waiting." "Traffic?" "There's no traffic in Summerland. In that case, I'm simply late." The woman's focus snapped to Avery. "And this," Damien said, "is my wife." His hand landed on the small of Avery's back, a casual, possessive touch that felt like a branding iron. "Avery, this is my aunt, Gabriella Viscari." "Charmed," Gabriella said, her voice dripping with the opposite sentiment. "How very sudden." "Life is often full of surprises," Damien shot back, not missing a beat. As they walked inside, Avery's breath hitched. This place made Damien's home look humble. We're talking painted ceilings, marble pillars, priceless art, and a room full of people. A lot of people. Every single head turned as Damien led her toward what looked like a massive dining room. "Everyone!" Damien's voice sliced through the chatter with chilling power. "I'd like you to meet Avery, my wife." A heavy, instant silence fell over the entire room. Then from the head of the table, a voice like rocks and cheap whiskey broke the quiet. "Well," the old man growled, "it's about damn time." The dinner that came next was a masterclass in survival. Placed at Damien's right, Avery felt the intense weight of their stares, every glance a silent judgment. The patriarch, Damien's grandfather, Lorenzo, ran the meal like a king, his questions disguised as small talk but feeling like surgical strikes. "So, tell me how you two met," Lorenzo asked, his steak knife moving with scary precision. "A charity gala," Damien answered, his voice perfectly calm. "Avery was running the event." I was in a terrible mood. She made me laugh. Further down the table, a low voice snarked, "I didn't know you knew how." The shot came from a cousin, a guy with slick hair and a sneer that made Avery's skin crawl. "I am full of surprises," Damien answered, his tone dangerously flat. "And you, Avery?" Lorenzo's pale eyes locked onto her. "What do you do with your time?" "I teach English at a public high school." "A teacher?" He said the word like she'd confessed to a crime. "How quaint." "I enjoy it," Avery said, her own voice steady. "The students are good kids, mostly." "And now you'll be joining the family business, I assume." "The family business?" "Construction," Damien cut in, his voice sharp. The grilling was a team sport, led by the patriarch, Lorenzo, who doubted her academic background could survive in a world of predators. The whole clan got in on the dissection. Aunt Gabriella's questions were cold and clinical, while Cousin Marco made snide comments about their Las Vegas wedding. Through it all, Avery was so riddled with anxiety she couldn't eat, as Lorenzo just watched her, his face a total blank. Then when the last course was served, he went in for the kill. "So, explain to me why you agreed to marry my grandson, Damien." The Don Lorenzo laid it out cold. Damon was a ruthless dude, so why was she qualified to be his wife? Total silence at the table. Every eye was on her. Just then, Damon puts a hand on her knee. Was that a "you got this" or a Don't screw up. Avery looked between them and just dropped this bomb. He asked, then added, and I think everyone's more than what they seem. After a super tense moment, Lorenzo just busted out laughing. This one's got fire, he said. Don't you dare put it out, Damien. And Damien just replied, I'll do my best not to. The second the car door shut, Avery's fake smile completely shattered, leaving her trembling. Damen, sitting there like a statue, just says, You handled that well. When she admits she feels sick, he's just like, You hit it perfectly. He asks if her family is always that intense, and she confirms it. Then his own mask cracks a bit, admitting she did the impossible by winning them over, only to drop the real bombshell. His grandfather has stage 4 cancer with only 6 months left. Damen then drops the whole truth. Lorenzo just wants to see him married before he dies. That's the one and only reason for this wedding, making Avery a key player in his end-of-life game plan. The cold, hard truth of her situation sinks in. She mumbles an apology, but he just waves it off, saying his grandpa has dodged death plenty in his line of work. When she asks what that work is, he just turns and stares out the window. Conversation over. At his massive estate, she's shown to a fancy, isolated room. Get some rest, he tells her. Tomorrow you start prepping for the next performance. Then you better get good at faking it, he says, starting to leave. But Avery calls him back, demanding to know why he really picked her. For a split second, his ice-cold control slips. You said you wanted to disappear, he tells her, his voice low. You were sick of being invisible, so I made people see you. She calls it a trap. He calls it an option. When she insists they're not the same thing, he agrees with a dead-end finality. No, it is not. Then he's gone, leaving Avery trapped in her new, very visible, gilded cage. The wedding ring on her finger feels less like a promise and more like a handcuff. Her phone is a dead brick, confirming she's completely cut off. She's a prisoner in a palace, stuck in a role she never wanted. The person known as Avery Lane has been totally erased, replaced by some stranger called Mrs. Viscari. With the gallery event just 3 days away, she is completely adrift. The next morning, a detailed, color-coded schedule shows up, basically the script for her new life. 8 o'clock, breakfast with Damen. 9 o'clock, a wardrobe fitting. 11 o'clock, media training. After a 30-minute lunch, a 2 o'clock class on proper carriage was scheduled, a lesson in how to stand like someone from another century. The bathroom alone was bigger than her old apartment, and the closet was overflowing with designer clothes, price tags still attached, proof of a life being systematically deleted. In the dining hall, Damen was already there, glued to a tablet with only a black coffee next to him. He gives her a look that feels more like an audit. You're on time, Omus, he says. Good. Her sarcastic response, yeah, I know how a clock works, is shut down immediately. That attitude won't help you Friday night. Avery bites back that nothing about Friday night is going to help. When a staff member tops off her coffee, her simple thank you is shot down by Damen, who says without even looking up, You don't need to thank the staff. Why the hell not? She demands. They're paid for what they do. They're also people, she argues. He just arches an eyebrow, a silent jab at her innocence. You're going to have a hard time with this. With being a jerk, she snaps back. With being practical, he corrects her, finally putting his tablet away. This gallery event is a huge deal. He lays out the stakes: family, powerful people, cameras, and reporters. everything you do reflects on me. Her sarcasm about the pressure gets a dead serious look, making her admit she's totally not ready for this. That's what the next 3 days are for, he states with ice in his voice. Her media coach, Richard, bursts in, a walking cloud of cologne and caffeine. Rule number 1, he announces. You never ever say no comment. It screams, guilty. When she asks of what, he waves it off. All that matters is the image. The move is to pivot to a pre-approved talking point, which he gives her on a laminated card full of soulless, generic phrases to memorize. This sounds like a corporate press release, she points out. This is how you don't get eaten alive, Richard shoots back, jumping right into a drill. He shoves a fake mic at her. Mrs. Viscari, how's it feel to marry into one of Vegas's most powerful families? Avery's pause is treated like a fatal mistake. A pause means you're hiding something. Do it again. Her next attempt, a week. It's lovely, gets a massive groan. Lovely. She says it's lovely. Oh, we are so screwed. For 2 miserable hours, they drilled until Avery could recite the lines like a robot, feeling like a complete fraud. After that came posture lessons with Celeste, a woman who looked at Avery like her slouching was a personal insult. Celeste forced her to walk with a book on her head, barking orders. Avery tried explaining she's a teacher, but Celeste wasn't having it. You are Mrs. Viscari now. The book hit the floor for the 5th time, and Celeste sighed like her life's work was a failure. That night, Damen finds her in the library, drowning in flashcards and old coffee, trying to make sense of a family tree that looked like a mob org chart. Still going, he notes. Her confusion over a cousin who's been married 3 times makes him crack a tiny, rare smile. You're not wrong, he admits, glancing at the chaotic diagram. He sits, loosens his tie, and for a second she sees a kind of exhaustion in him that money could never fix. Avery jumps on the chance to ask a question, to which he just says, You already did. So can we be real for a second? She asks. What's with the hate? For who? He asks back. Your family. You talk about them like a hostile takeover. A heavy silence fills the room. His fingers tap on the table, the first real crack in his cool exterior. Not hate, he finally says. 0 trust. That's so much worse, she observes. Maybe, he admits before standing up. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a whole new level of fake. He was right. The next day was a 3-hour photo shoot of their staged romance. Avery was sure Damen had never stepped foot in the kitchen where they were supposed to act all cozy. The photographer just kept yelling, Just be natural, which was the biggest joke of all. Told to look at Damen like she adored him, all Avery could see was the man who owned the next 6 months of her life. You're lost in your head, Damen whispered so only she could hear. It's the only real estate I still own, she shot back. Then find a nicer neighborhood, he told her. But her mind was just a highlight reel of her life struggles, late bills and her mom's empty stare. Happiness was a place she'd only ever seen on postcards. I can't, she breathed out. For a split second, something in Damen changed, a flash of actual humanity in his eyes. His hand covered hers, and it felt surprisingly warm. Then just hang on, he whispered. That's the whole job. The camera shutter clicked, and the photographer screamed, Gold! That night, alone in her massive bed, Avery listened to the muffled sounds of Damen's life down the hall until the house went completely and creepily silent. She started to wonder if he was even capable of feeling anything, or if she was just another line item on a spreadsheet. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a summons to the east sitting room for the next morning alone. She cautiously texted back asking who this was, and the reply was fast and clear. Gabriella, we need to talk. The next day, Gabriella Viscari was already there, holding court in an armchair like it was the Iron Throne, giving off waves of queenly, intimidating power. Sit, Gabriella commanded. It was not a request. Coffee. I'm good, thanks. Smart girl. Caffeine is for people with no willpower, Gabriella said before taking a big sip of her own. Her stare felt like a physical weight. All right, let's cut the garbage. This marriage is a total sham. Avery's stomach turned to ice. She tried to deny it, but was instantly shut down. I've been navigating this snake pit for 40 years. I know a real marriage when I see one, and this is not it. Gabriella leaned in, her voice dropping low. So, let's get to the point. What's your endgame? Avery fires back. I signed an NDA, but Gabriella just scoffs. And paper's just paper. It tears. Avery's hands ball into fists in her lap. Look, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just have to survive the next 6 months. 6 months? Gabriella's eyes light up like a predator spotting a weak link. That's a very specific number. Smells like a contract. I never said that. Your terror is screaming it. The matriarch leans back, her eyes practically drilling through Avery. You're sneakier than you look, I'll give you that. Damien needs it. His last fling was as exciting as a wet towel. There was another one. A couple, they didn't make the cut. She sips her coffee. But you're a whole new model. How so? You're genuinely petrified. The others just acted like it. You're obviously an outsider, and you're not even good at hiding it. That's either gutsy or just plain stupid. I'm betting on stupid. For the first time, a real smile hits Gabriella's lips. Not warm, but like she's sizing up a new toy. Against my better judgment, I'm entertained. So here's some free advice. Just make it through the first month. And things chill out after that? Whose pressure? All of it. Gabriella stands, smoothing her skirt. Oh, and Avery, ditch whatever you think you know about us. It's all a show. We're a family of ghosts and mirrors, every single one. And just like that, she's gone, leaving Avery's heart pounding in the sudden quiet. The cryptic message landed with terrifying clarity. She didn't sign a business deal. She walked into a deadly maze with invisible traps. The gallery party felt like a physical assault. Simone spent 4 hours molding her into a red carpet bombshell. The dress was midnight black, with a slit so high it gave her a constant, low-grade panic attack. Her hair, her makeup. The woman in the mirror was a total stranger. You are now a corporate asset, Simone said with a smug nod. That's the entire goal. Then Damien showed up, and for the first time ever, he just stopped cold. His eyes did a full scan, and the stone-cold mask he always wears actually cracked. You look, he started, his voice gone. Like an asset, Avery filled in. I was aiming for breathtaking, but that works too. The gallery was some trendy warehouse in Vegas, turned into a minimalist art shrine. The second they arrived, a mob of paparazzi swarmed them, a brutal blitz of camera flashes and shouted questions. All right, heads up, Damien ordered as the car stopped. Smile, wave, and say nothing. I'll handle this crowd. What if they ask me something? Dodge it. You had 2 hours of training for exactly this. The door opened to absolute mayhem. Damien got out first, then reached back for her. His hand was a vice grip on hers as she was thrown into the storm of light and sound. "Mr. Viscari, over here. Who's the new woman? Are the wedding rumors true?" Damien's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her tight against him. For the cameras, it was a power couple pose. For Avery, it felt like being put in a cold, calculated cage. "Smile," he breathed in her ear. And she did. She pasted one on until her face ached, waving to nobody as Damien carved a path through the press and into the building. The inside was just a more polished war zone, full of beautiful sharks, endless drinks, and art worth more than a small country. "Do not leave my side, no matter what," Damien commanded, an order Avery had zero plans to disobey. They got about 10 minutes of peace before a man cut them off. He was in his 50s with silver hair and the empty eyes of a shark. A total predator. "Damien!" the man oozed, his voice slick with fake friendliness. "I heard you took the plunge. Victor!" Damien's tone dropped 20 degrees. "This is my wife, Avery. Avery, Victor Castellano, the shark who ran half the city." "Only half," Victor smirked, his eyes glued to Avery. "The photos didn't do you justice. So tell me, how'd you finally hook the biggest prize in Vegas?" "I didn't hook him," Avery shot back, sticking to her script. "We were lucky enough to find each other." "How poetic." Victor's smile was all teeth. "So what's your story, Avery?" "I'm a teacher." "How noble," he said, as if she'd just admitted to a fatal illness. "I'm sure Damien can set you up with a more suitable job now." "Teaching is a suitable job," Avery retorted, surprised by her own guts. "It matters." Of course, of course." Victor turned his attention back to Damien. "We need to discuss the Henderson acquisition." "This isn't the place, Victor. The deadline's coming up." "With you, it always is." Damien's grip on her tightened. "My office, tomorrow." Victor's plastic smile vanished. "Tomorrow," he gave Avery a quick nod. "A pleasure, Mrs. Vicari." The second he left, Avery could finally breathe. "I absolutely despise that man. Get in line, but he's a necessary evil." "For what?" "Business." Damien led her to a less crowded spot. "You handled that well." "My first instinct was to punch him." "Mine too, but that's not how we play this game." "Then what are the rules?" Before he could explain, Lorenzo just appeared out of nowhere. The old Don walked with a cane, but the crowd parted for him like he was a god. "Grandfather," Damien said, his voice completely empty. "You brought the girl." Lorenzo's cloudy eyes focused on Avery. "Good. Let me inspect your purchase." Avery stood her ground while he sized her up like a show pony, but she met his stare and refused to look away. "She'll pass," Lorenzo announced after a long, tense silence. "There's fire in her. Good. Damien needs a wife who won't shatter." "I'm not some animal," Avery snapped, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. A rough laugh rumbled in Lorenzo's chest, the same one she remembered from dinner. "No, that's clear. Now come with me. We'll let Damien handle his business." The statement was a flat-out command. As Lorenzo began to walk, Avery had to follow, feeling the heat of Damien's stare on her back. The old man led her to a quieter part of the gallery, into alcoves where abstract paintings were lost in shadow. "Do you get art?" Lorenzo grunted. "A little. My degree's in literature, not art history." "Excellent. People who claim to get art are usually frauds." He stopped at the canvas that was nothing but pure, focused rage. "Describe what you see." Avery looked at it hard. It's chaos with a purpose, anger aimed at a single target. Precisely. Lorenzo's cane tapped the marble floor. That is my grandson. A hurricane under perfect control. He's been like this since he was a boy. Do you know why? No. Because his father was murdered when he was 8 years old. They called it a car accident. But it was a hit. It was a message, sent by a rival family. Lorenzo's voice was cold and empty. And Damien was the one who found the body. A sharp gasp stuck in Avery's throat. That's barbaric. It is. But that's the fire that forged the man he is today. Driven, lethal, and completely without mercy when he has to be. Lorenzo turned, his eyes locking onto hers. I'm telling you this so you understand the world you've just entered. This family doesn't play by regular rules. We can't afford to. So whose rules do you follow? Our own. His eyes scanned her face. Does this reality bother you? Should it? It should. But I can tell you're not easily spooked. I saw how you handled Gabriella. He knew about that. She tells me everything. A faint smile appeared on Lorenzo's lips. She's taken a liking to you. That's a first. Gabriella hates everyone. I noticed that, Avery thought. Here's some free advice, kid. The next 6 months will be a trial by fire. My family will test you. They will poke you. They will look for your weaknesses. A few might even try to break you just to see if you can be broken. You can't let them. How am I supposed to stop them? By remembering you're a Viscari now. That name is your armor and your weapon. Use it. He started walking again, Avery trailing him, her thoughts a complete mess. Every word from Lorenzo was a threat and an initiation all at once. When they got back to the main hall, Damien was in a tense huddle with men in pricey suits. His head snapped up as they got closer, and a whole silent conversation passed between him and his grandfather in a single look. I'm tired, Lorenzo announced. Take me home. I can get Marco. Not Marco, you two. The ride to Lorenzo's mansion was wrapped in a thick, heavy silence. The old Don sat up front. Damien drove, and Avery sat in the back, watching the Vegas lights blur into streaks of color. So they roll up, and Lorenzo just stays in the car. Damon, he barks. A word? Avery gets the memo and bails, watching them have a hushed, intense little chat. She can't make out the words, but Lorenzo's waving his hands like a madman while Damon just stands there, soaking it all in with a complete poker face. Finally, the Don gets out and zeroes in on Avery. You'll be at dinner Sunday. It's an order, not an invite. Yes, sir. Good. And Avery, trust no one, not even him. He jerks his head at Damon. Especially not him. Then he's gone, swallowed by the mansion, leaving Avery with a serious case of the creeps. And right on cue, Damon reappears. What did he say to you? Damon's voice is wound so tight it's about to snap. Nothing. It was meaningless. He's lost in his own fantasies. The medication just makes it worse. He seemed perfectly lucid to me. Damon had no comeback for that one. The drive home was so tense you could choke on it. Back at the estate, Avery makes a break for her room, totally drained. She's about to open the door when Damon's voice cuts through the quiet. You played your part well tonight. She turns. He's standing in his doorway, jacket gone, tie loosened. For a split second, he looks almost human. Your grandfather told me what happened with your father, Avery says softly. A flash of pure agony crosses Damon's face. That was a private matter. He wanted me to understand you. There's nothing to understand. That was a different life. You were just a boy. I'm not a boy anymore. He backs into his room. Good night, Avery. The click of the lock is a total shutdown. She bolts her own door and collapses on the bed. Her phone buzzes with a text from a blocked number. Welcome to the family. Watch your back. She stares at it for a hot minute before deleting it, but the words stick around like a ghost in the dark. That silent threat hangs in the air for days, way scarier than any text. Life gets into a messed up rhythm. Tense morning coffees with Damen sitting there like they're negotiating a ceasefire. Her afternoons are spent with Simone, learning how to walk, talk, and breathe like the perfect Mrs. Vescari. The nights are a blur of charity parties and family dinners, where every smile is a calculated lie. Under all of it is the crushing weight of the whole charade, faking that she belongs, faking that she likes this guy, faking that this is anything but a contract with a ticking clock. But then around week 3, things get weird. It's subtle at first. Damen starts asking for her opinion on tiny things. Which tie to wear, salmon or chicken for the catering, or if the Picasso looks better than the Rothko in the hall. It's all pointless stuff, decisions that mean nothing, except they started to feel huge when he actually did what she suggested every single time. Then came the morning she walked downstairs to find her favorite coffee already made. Not the bougie blend Damen drinks, but the cheap vanilla creamer she mentioned offhand weeks ago, a tiny piece of the life she left behind. Where did this come from? She asks, staring at the bottle. Damen is glued to his phone. The kitchen. I didn't ask the kitchen for it. I did. Why? You said you liked it. I said it once. Once was enough. He finally looks at her, and his eyes have a new kind of heat. Stop interrogating the coffee, Avery. Just drink it. So she did. It tasted like her old life, a time that was way harder, but was 100% hers. The Sunday dinners at Lorenzo's place become a weekly torture session. Same faces, same shady questions masked as small talk, and the constant vibe of being sized up and written off. Marco, the cousin, with the slick hair and greedy eyes, always corners her the second Damen's busy. So, Marco slides into her space one night by the bar while Damen's distracted. How's the married life treating you? It's satisfactory, Avery says, her voice flat. Just satisfactory? That sounds crazy boring. I'm crazy boring. Somehow I find that hard to believe. Marco leans in even closer, his expensive cologne not quite Heidi's twisky on his breath. I bet you're just playing a part. We all are. The real question is, what's your endgame? I don't have one. Everybody wants something. Money, safety, a little taste of this before you get tossed out. I want you to back off. Marco just laughs. You've got a sharp edge. I like that. Damen was always into the complicated ones. What is that supposed to mean? It means you're not the first woman who thought she could fix him, but you might be the first one who... Marco. Damen's voice cuts through the party chatter like a razor. He's suddenly right there beside Avery, his face a complete blank. Get lost. Hey, we were just talking. No, you were crowding my wife. There's a big difference. Marco's smug look finally cracks. He holds up his hands like he's surrendering. Easy, cousin, just being friendly. Be friendly somewhere else. As Marco slinks off, Avery lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Damen's hand is on the small of her back, a move that feels half like protection, half like a brand. You all right? He asks, his voice low. I can handle Marco. I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. He guides her away. The guy is a clown. Pay him no mind. He said I wasn't the first. You're not. That raw honesty stings way more than she expected. How many others were there? Does it change anything? Maybe. Damen stops walking. They're alone in the hall, the party noise muffled as he turns to her. 3, over the last 5 years, all of them were arrangements just like ours. None of them lasted more than a few months. What happened to them? They wanted something from me I couldn't give. What did they want? Me. He says the word like it's the simplest thing in the world. The real me, not the deal, not the act. They wanted a man I don't know how to be. Avery looks for a lie in his eyes. All she finds is a brutal, scary truth. And me? You're different. How? You don't want me. So the fact that Avery wants to run for the hills, he claims, actually makes her less of a problem. For who, you ask? For both of them, apparently. But before she can even wrap her head around that, Gabriella pops up to announce dinner is served. The meal is a masterclass in organized chaos. Lorenzo, the Don, tells sanitized mob stories while Gabriella suspiciously eyes everyone at the table. Marco sulks, Damen's family trades passive-aggressive insults. And Avery? She just keeps a sweet smile plastered on, realizing with a sick feeling that she's actually learning the rules to their deadly game. After the meal, Lorenzo calls Damen in for their usual private meeting. It's a Sunday ritual that always leaves Damen tense and silent for the whole ride home. Avery never asks because who wants to know those secrets? Tonight, though, Damen actually breaks the silence. He wants us to move into the main house. Avery's head snaps toward him. What? Apparently, Granddad thinks it's tradition for the heir to live at the family compound. You're the heir? She asks, completely shocked. I'm the oldest grandson. That's the deal. And what did you tell him? I told him no. And the way he says it is absolutely final. Damen cuts the engine but stays put. I don't want you living there. It's already hard enough keeping you safe here. That one word hangs between them. Safe. Not happy. Not good. Safe. Am I in danger? Avery asks, her voice barely a whisper. Damen's jaw tightens. No. You're lying. I'm being cautious. Those aren't the same thing, Damen. Just let it go, Avery. He gets out of the car, ending it. But Avery can't let it go. That night, she finally does the one thing she's been avoiding for weeks. She searches Damien Viscari on the internet. Under the shiny corporate image, she finds some seriously messed up stuff. Rumors and accusations. And one article from 5 years ago linking the Viscari family to organized crime. The writer was careful, using words like alleged and rumored, but the message was clear. Money laundering, racketeering, and business rivals who had a habit of vanishing. Avery shuts the laptop, staring at the ceiling. She had felt it. The darkness in this family. It was in Lorenzo's threats, Gabriella's cryptic warnings, and the fear the staff tried to pass off as respect. But seeing it in print makes it terrifyingly real. So she's tied the knot with some kind of gangster, a crime lord, call him whatever you want. Her phone buzzes. It's that burner number again. Think you're safe. Her fingers shake as she texts back. Who are you? And gets ghosted. 10 minutes pass, then 20, then a solid hour, just pure silence. And the gut punch realization hits. This is way more dangerous than just a fake wedding. The next morning, Damen finds her in the library, drowning in her old teaching memorabilia. Old lesson plans, student papers, the works. You miss it, he points out. Dude wasn't asking, he was stating a fact. More and more each day, he tells her, you could go back eventually. Seriously, is that even an option? Avery locks eyes with him. It's been almost a month. They've already hired someone else. And he just says, I checked. Cold. Fine, I'll teach somewhere else. Where? What school hires a Viscari for a term? They'll think you're a rich kid playing pretend or on a wedding sabbatical, which is exactly what happened. Is it? Daman drops into a nearby chair, looking totally spent. She's starting to learn his tells, the steel in his shoulders, that jaw set like concrete, the line between his eyes. What did you find? He asks, and his tone says, don't even try to lie. Her confusion is a weak shield. Last night you were Googling me. I can see it on your face. A cold dread washes over Avery. How could you possibly? I built this network. I monitor every single device in this mansion. That is a complete violation of my privacy. It's a security protocol. He steps closer. Now tell me what you saw. Articles, allegations, rumors about your family being mobbed up, and I need you to tell me the truth. Damon's silence is deafening, basically a confession. When he finally talks, his voice is pure ice. My grandfather built an empire. Parts of it were legit, parts weren't. By the time I saw the whole picture, it was all mixed together. That doesn't answer my question. It's the only answer you're getting. Avery tries to find the right words. Are you in that business? I handled the legal ventures. Real estate, development, that portfolio. I keep my hands clean of the other enterprises. But you know they exist. Knowing isn't the same as participating. It's way too close for comfort. Daman stands up so fast that Avery flinches hard. He sees her fear, and his whole tough guy facade just crumbles. I would never hurt you. I never said you would. You recoiled from me. You moved so suddenly. I am not my family, Avery. I don't... He trails off, dragging a hand through his hair. This is the first time she's seen him totally unglued. I have spent my entire adult life creating something legitimate, something that won't self-destruct when my grandfather dies and the sharks start circling his empire. This marriage, this insane, fake, short-term marriage is part of the plan. It buys me time. It makes me look stable. It gives me leverage. So I'm just a pawn in your game. You are a solution. There's a crucial difference. Not from where I'm standing. They stood on opposite sides of the desk as pure rage started boiling up inside Avery. Anger at him for trapping her, at herself for falling for it, and at life for giving her this trash choice. I want to end this deal, she announced, her voice quiet but firm. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Then go. Damon's voice was pure ice, his expression a perfect cold mask. The door isn't locked. You're free to walk. I'll have the annulment papers ready by sunrise. And I'll still have my debts. Those were the terms we agreed on. That is so unbelievably unfair. It is, but that's the reality of it. He starts to walk out, then throws one last look over his shoulder. You have a choice, Avery. You always did. The only question is whether you've got the guts to live with the consequences. Then he just leaves her there, a trembling mess of fury, terror, and some other emotion she couldn't pin down. She looked at her copy of The Great Gatsby, at that famous green light, thinking about chasing things you can't have. She thought about desire and winning and losing. And at the end of it all, she didn't leave. Later that night, she finds him in his study looking over some high-stakes documents. He looks up when she comes in. "I'm staying," Avery declares. "I know, but I need 100% transparency from you. No more surprises, no more secrets." "That's not part of our deal." "Then let's renegotiate the deal." Daman sets his pen down. "You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to treat me like a person, not a game piece." He mulls it over for a second. "What do you need to know?" "Everything," Avery says, taking the chair across from his. "And we can start with who is sending me these creepy text messages." Damon's whole vibe shifts. "Show me." She pulls out her phone and gives it to him. He scrolls through the messages, his face hardening like concrete. "How long has this been happening?" 3 weeks. It started right after the art gallery party." "And it never crossed your mind to tell me?" "I wasn't sure I could trust you." "For crying out loud, Avery." He's on his feet, pacing the room. "This is a huge deal. This is—" He stops short, pulling out his phone to make a call. "I need a number traced. Send me what you find the second you have it." He reads the number off her screen and hangs up. "You're getting a new phone tomorrow, and a security team." "I'm not having a security team. This isn't up for debate. Someone is threatening you, which means they know about our deal, which means—" He cuts himself off again. "I need to manage this." "Manage it? How?" "That doesn't concern you." "It absolutely concerns me if I'm the one in the crosshairs." Daman closes the distance, crouching down to look her in the eye. His gray eyes were blazing, almost terrifying. "You need to understand something basic. The world I live in is not safe. People see weakness as an open invitation to strike. Being married to me makes you a target. I can protect you, but only if you let me. By keeping me in the dark. By keeping you breathing." The seriousness of his words just landed in the room with a thud. Avery swallowed hard. "Who would want to hurt me?" "Rivals, enemies, people who think you're a soft spot to get to me." He stood up to his full height. "I was careful. I kept this marriage under wraps, but it's obvious someone has been spying on us." She asks him straight up, "Is your family doing this?" "No, they may hate your guts, but they wouldn't pull a stunt like this. It's a line they just don't cross." "Then who is it?" "I don't have a name yet, but trust me, I'm going to get one." The next day, the security detail appeared. 2 guys built like tanks, standing outside her door and tailing Avery's every move. The whole house felt smaller, like the suffocating pressure telling her that her life was no longer her own. "This is literally a prison," she tells Daman. "You are being protected." The two feel exactly the same. They are not remotely the same. The threatening text stopped, but Avery couldn't shake the creepy, crawly feeling of always being watched. Every car that tailed her a little too close, every stranger at the market who stared a second too long, every messed up shadow. She felt like she was being haunted, and she hated every single second of it. 2 weeks later, right in the middle of Sunday dinner, Lorenzo just collapses. It was instant. 1 minute, he's telling some story about a business deal back in the 1970s. The next, he's a heap in his chair, his face gray, his breath ragged. The whole room just descends into chaos. Gabriella is screaming for an ambulance. Daman is already next to his grandfather, feeling for a pulse. Marco is barking orders into his phone, and Avery is just stuck in place, watching the empire that basically owns her come crashing down. The ambulance shows up and Lorenzo is rushed to the hospital. The family follows him in a funeral-like procession of black cars. leaving Avery all alone in a sterile waiting room, surrounded by Viscaris who had finally dropped their masks. Gabriella was a sobbing wreck. Marco was pacing back and forth like a madman. Daman was just standing like a statue by the window, his eyes empty, and his jaw clenched so hard Avery thought it might shatter. She approached him like you'd approach a trapped animal. "Are you okay?" His answer was flat and absolute. "He's dying." But they said he was stable. "He's dying," Daman said again. "This is it. The beginning of the end. The doctors told us months ago. His heart is shot. The cancer treatments wrecked the rest of him. Yeah, it's only a matter of time." "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. He lasted longer than most guys in our business. He always knew the price." But that logic wasn't exactly a comfort. Daman finally looked at her, and for a split second, his entire ironclad fortress just crumbled. She saw pure, unfiltered terror. "When he's gone," he said, his voice like a grim prophecy, "everything is gonna burn. The family, the operation, every deal he held together for 40 years. It's all gonna implode. There's gonna be a war for his crown. And they expect you to take it. They expect me to try. And if you don't make it, someone else will, someone much, much worse." He looked back out the window. "I just need him to hang on for 6 more months. Just 6, and this whole fake marriage will have done its job." The whole point was to make them look legit, solid, and untouchable. But when she asked if the old Don could actually last 6 months, Damon's silence was deafening. Lorenzo made it through the night. They moved him to the ACU, where he was hooked up to a symphony of machines that did his breathing for him. The family kept a round-the-clock watch, a parade of pale ghosts haunting his bedside. Avery ended up there at 3 a.m, listening to the machines sigh for him, while Daman was passed out in a chair. The old man's eyes fluttered open, lost in the fog, and then they locked on her. "You're still here," he rasped. "Where else would I go? Smart girl." His hand made a weak gesture, and she took it in hers. His skin felt like cold, thin paper. "Do you love him yet?" "What?" "Daman, do you love him?" A perfect, polished lie formed on her lips, the kind of answer her father had drilled into her. But Lorenzo's stare cut right through the BS, and the real answer just tumbled out. "I don't know." A faint, grim smile touched Lorenzo's lips, a mix of pain and respect. "The only honest answer. You don't know love. You survive it." His grip got tighter. "You're what he needs. You're his humanity. Don't let him lose it after I'm gone. You're not going anywhere. We're all going somewhere, kid. The real question is if the legacy we leave behind means anything." His eyes slid shut. "Watch him. He's going to need you." Lorenzo faded out, leaving Avery crushed under the weight of a dying man's last order. Across the room, Daman stirred. He looked from his grandfather to her, and a quiet moment of truth passed between them. A shared surrender to the fact that their world was cracking apart and they were completely helpless to stop it. "Come here," Daman muttered. Avery went to him, and he pulled her down onto his lap, his arm wrapping around her as she finally let herself lean on him. This wasn't an act, not for any hidden cameras, but a hug born from a raw, desperate need she'd felt for the first time in this whole twisted nightmare. They stayed like that until dawn crept in, when the doctors announced Lorenzo's condition had stabilized. Once the family returned, the show was back on. And yet, the vibe of between Avery and Daman had completely shifted. The thick, bold line they'd drawn between their act and their reality was starting to fade. 3 weeks later, Lorenzo came home, a ghost of his former self, but at least he was breathing. The family had a tense dinner, if the Viscaris were even capable of being quiet. Avery had given up trying to keep track of the endless stream of events. It had all blurred into one long, exhausting performance of fake smiles and careful words, all of it judged against some standard she couldn't even see. But since the hospital, Damon's touch was different. It was a secret language no one else saw, but his hand would find hers under the table. He'd pull her closer in a packed room, his palm resting on her back with a silent claim. And late at night, she'd hear the restless sound of his pacing from his room. Twice, on 2 different nights, she found him standing in her doorway, just watching, as if making sure she hadn't vanished into thin air. "You don't have to do that," she'd said. "Do what?" "Stand guard." "I'm not standing guard. I'm—" He hunted for the word. "Checking on you." "I'm fine." "You're never fine." "Neither am I, but we're both still here." There was zero romance in the exchange. Nothing soft. But it was the cold, hard truth. And Avery was learning that with Damon, this kind of brutal honesty was worth more than any diamond. The morning their world finally imploded started out deceptively normal, with Avery reading in the library. She was actually reading, not just pretending, when Damon blew into the room. His face was a sheet white mask, his jaw set in a way that screamed disaster. "We have to leave, right now." Avery put her book down. "What's wrong?" "In the car. Get your purse, Avery. Now." The command in his voice was a splinter of pure ice. She grabbed her stuff and followed him to a black SUV in the garage. This wasn't one of their normal rides. The windows on this thing were so black they were practically a confession. "Get in the back," Damon ordered, "and keep your head down." "What in the world is going on?" "Someone sold pictures of us. From before." Avery felt all the blood rush from her face. "What pictures?" "The chapel's security footage. You, wasted, barely conscious. Me, basically holding you up. It looks—" He hesitated. "It looks exactly like what it was." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that it's everywhere. Bad enough that my own family is demanding answers I can't give." So bad his phone started buzzing, he shot it, a death glare, and killed the call. "Bad enough that we have to vanish until I can get this under control." They drove for 2 hours, heading east into the empty heart of the desert. Mason, her silent shadow for weeks, just gave short, coded answers into his phone. Damon was a Category 5 hurricane on his own phone, his voice a low, vicious weapon aimed at soldiers she couldn't see. "I don't care what they're offering. No comment, nothing." A pause. "Then offer more. Buy every single print. I want them gone by tonight." Another long pause. "Because if you fail, you're fired, that's why." He hung up only to dial someone else. "Where are we going?" Avery whispered. "A safe house, completely off-grid. Only Mason and I know about it." "And your family?" "Especially not them." They got to a building in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't a cabin. Damon didn't do rustic, but it was totally isolated. Solar panels and a generator could keep it running for weeks. Mason did a sweep of the perimeter, while Damon led her inside. The place was just one stark room, a sterile, secure box that felt more like a jail cell than a refuge. "How long are we staying here?" Avery asked. "As long as it takes." Damon was already glued to the news on his phone, his face getting grimmer with every picture he saw. "Let me see." "No." Damen, it's my face. I have a right to know. He held her gaze for a long, heavy moment before handing over the phone. I warned you. The headlines were a straight-up public execution. Billionaire's drunk wedding sham. Teacher in a golden cage. The photos were a total nightmare trip. There she was, with a stupid napkin as a veil, makeup smeared, being propped up by a guy whose face she couldn't even remember. The pics were grainy, but the story they told was brutal and crystal clear. Clear enough to scream the dirty truth of the whole deal. This is bad, she whispered. It's a catastrophe. It introduces the one thing I couldn't risk. Doubt. It makes people question if any of this is real. It isn't real. I know that, you know that, but the world can't. He snatched his phone back. And now the whole world is watching. By morning, the media is gonna be relentless. Gold digger, coercion, every dirty accusation they can think of. His family is gonna demand answers. Lorenzo will be furious. Damen's whole world is spinning out, his perfect plan destroyed by some guard looking for a payday. Sue them, she asks. That's already in motion, but the story is out. The damage is done. Avery collapses on the sofa, shaking, and asks for the plan. His strategy? Lay low and hope a bigger scandal knocks them out of the headlines. And if one doesn't, Damen comes to sit next to her, and for the first time he really truly looks at her. Then we handle it. Together. She's completely floored. I thought this was just a business deal. He admits it started that way, but now things have gotten complicated. How complicated? She pushes. He then confesses that over the last 3 months, she stopped being a chess piece and became something vital. Avery is shook. He immediately clarifies, don't read this wrong. It's not a declaration of love. It's a fact. You're vital, and I protect my assets. That's it. But she fires back. Is it? He dodges, staring out at the desert, just saying that his guy Mason is on watch. We're totally safe here. Nobody's getting through, he says. She shoots back. You really think they'd even try? He lays it out cold. With this kind of money involved, people turn into sharks. And our marriage? It's blood in the water. The rest of the day is dead quiet. He's making deals on the phone while she just stares at a book, not reading a single word. Her mind is stuck on a loop, replaying those nightmare photos, her whole desperate situation exposed. Now everyone knows their marriage was built on booze and bad choices, not love. As night falls, Damen gets a fire going, and she finds herself moving closer to it. He comes over to the couch, holding out 2 glasses of whiskey. I don't drink, she says, but he just waves it off. You did once, look how that worked out, she answers flatly. That's not funny, he smirks. A little funny. He offers the glass again. You don't have to drink it, but it's here. She takes it, watching the liquid swirl. I don't remember anything about that night. Not a single thing. Her voice breaks. I don't remember meeting you or agreeing. I don't remember becoming this. This what? He asks, his voice surprisingly soft. Mrs. Viscari, the train wreck in those pictures. The woman so desperate a stranger's deal looked like her only way out. He just shakes his head. You weren't desperate. You were drowning. What's the difference? Damen throws back a big sip of his drink. I've made a lot of bad calls in my life. Marrying you wasn't one of them. She's stunned. Even with all this blowing up in our faces? Even now. He puts his glass down, getting dead serious. You want to know why I really did it? You figured I needed a cover story. Yeah, that was the idea, but not my reason. He turns to face her head on. I did it because for the first time in my life, someone looked at me and didn't see the money, didn't see the family name. They just saw a dude in a chapel at 3 a.m. who was just as lost as they were. You saw a human, and The words get stuck in his throat. I had to hang on to that. Even if it was a lie, just for a second, I needed to be seen like that just a little longer. Avery feels her chest tighten. Dominite. But he stops her. I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just giving you the truth you asked for. So there it is. The only sound is the fire crackling. Avery's entire world is shifting. The walls she built are starting to crack. This cold, calculating guy just ripped out a piece of his soul for her, and she has no clue what to do with it. I'm scared, she finally whispers. Of what? Of this, of you, of what happens when the 6 months are up and I have to go back to being a nobody. You are not a nobody. I was. Before you, I was invisible. I taught kids who couldn't care less, was buried in debt, and watched my own mom's memory of me disappear every week. I was sinking, just like you said. And now She waves a hand at everything around them, unable to find the right words. I don't even know who I am anymore. You're Avery, that hasn't changed. Everything has changed. Daman reaches for her, moving slow, giving her a chance to back away. She doesn't. His hand cups her jaw, his thumb brushing her cheek. Not everything. She should have pulled back, should have reminded him about their contract. But she didn't. She leaned forward, and when he kissed her so incredibly gently, she kissed him back. It wasn't some big movie moment. No orchestra started playing, the ground didn't shake. It was just two actors who got so lost in their parts they forgot what was real, now trying to find it in each other. When they pull apart, he rests his forehead against hers. This is a really bad idea. Probably the worst, she admitted. We should stop this. We should. But neither of them moved. I can't make you any promises, he said, his voice a low rumble. No storybook ending. I can't promise I won't break you. It's not who I am. Then don't promise anything, Avery shot back. Just be here with me in this moment, that's enough. They stayed right there until the fire burned down to glowing embers. His arm was wrapped tight around her. Her head was on his chest. There was no more talking, no more scheming, just two people in a place where they didn't have to pretend. She finally passed out from sheer exhaustion. When Avery woke up hours later, she was tucked in bed. Daman was on the couch, his jacket balled up as a pillow, still playing the protector, keeping his distance, trying to control a situation that was totally out of his hands. The next 3 days played out like a weird, domestic fantasy. No Mafia empire, no duties, no lies, just Avery and Daman, living in a bubble of reality, learning how to be real with each other. Their talks drifted to normal things. What books they liked, their most embarrassing moments, the little pieces that make a person. Daman dropped the unfiltered story about his father, finding the body, the funeral, where the 8-year-old Vascari heir wasn't allowed to shed a tear. He told her about the nightmares that haunted him for years. Avery shared the story of her mom, of a diagnosis that came too late, and the pain of watching the person you love become a stranger. She confessed how guilty she felt for not visiting more, how every trip was a fresh kind of hell. You're a good daughter, Daman told her one evening as she cooked dinner. I'm a terrible daughter. I haven't been to see her in weeks. Because you're stuck in a life you never signed up for. That's not your fault. It feels like it is. Most burdens do. That doesn't make them real. He handed her a knife. Here, take your guilt out on these onions. On the fourth day, Mason appeared with a solution. The lawyers had worked their magic. The chapel was paid, the video was gone, and a new story was spun for the public. The pictures were misleading. A young couple, a spontaneous wedding, a bit too much champagne, a whole lot of nothing. It won't make the story vanish, Mason said, but it'll lose steam. In a week, maybe 2. And my family? Damen asked. Gabriella took care of them. She passed it off as tabloid junk. Lorenzo bought it. Lorenzo's slipping. He'd buy any story that protects his climb to the top. Regardless, the play worked. Mason then looked straight at Avery. You're both clear to come back. Home. The word didn't even feel right. That mansion was never a home. It was a war room. Going back meant putting the masks back on, and Avery wasn't even sure she remembered her lines. The drive back to Vegas was completely silent. The city's lights appeared on the horizon, a fake promise. Avery watched it get closer, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. She hated the idea of going back, of playing the part of Mrs. Viscari again. For 4 days, she had just been Avery, and she was only now realizing what a huge loss that was. We have to talk about what happened, Damen said, pulling the car into the driveway. Do we have to? Yes. And what if I don't want to? Then we won't. But eventually what? We admit this whole deal isn't an act anymore, that we crossed a line there's no coming back from. Avery turned to him. What's the end game here, Damen? This contract is up in 2 months. Then what? I don't know. That's not a good enough answer. It's the only one I have. He cut the engine. I don't know how to do this. Look, I can't give you what you deserve, but His voice broke. The words just wouldn't come out. I can't let you go. But our deal says... The deal doesn't matter, he cut in. This is just me asking you. Not the owner of this place, not your contract husband, me. Do you want this? Avery's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the edge of the cliff. Staying was a huge risk. Leaving meant going back to nothing. There was no right move. I don't know, she whispered. Damen just nodded, filled with the disappointment he was clearly expecting. Understood. Inside, the mansion felt wrong, its warmth fake, the air suddenly thin and cold. Or maybe Avery had changed, because after 4 days of being real, she just couldn't fake it anymore. Sleep was a total impossibility that night. She lay in her cold bed, just tracing the shadows on the ceiling. Across the hall, she could hear Damen's usual restless pacing. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number she had tried to delete from her life. Your time is up. Tomorrow, midnight. The message was a clear threat. Show up alone or it's over. A cold dread washed over her. Her thoughts scrambled as she flew across the hall, bursting right into Damen's room. He spun around, the instant reaction of a hunter sensing danger. What is it? She didn't say a word, just held out the phone. In his eyes, she saw a darkness she'd never seen before. A rage so pure, so focused, it was absolutely lethal. Model. That brutal question just hung there. Her answer was a ghost of a whisper. But him? He was already moving, phone to his ear, calling in the cavalry. Get a trace, he commanded. Find them. He turned back to her, his voice pure steel. You're not going. Her protest died before it even started. "It's a setup," he said flatly. "A play to get you away from me. I'm not letting that happen." Her fear was just a tiny question. "But what if it isn't?" "Then I'll fix it." He stepped in, hands on her shoulders, grounding her in the middle of this hurricane. "Listen, you stay here. You go nowhere without me or Mason. Understood?" A small nod was all he needed before pulling her into a crushing hug. Smashed against his chest, their hearts beat the same frantic rhythm. He breathed a promise into her hair. "I won't let them touch you. This ends with me." Her reply was just a breath. "How?" His answer was ice cold. "By being the monster they already think I am." The next day was pure, slow-burn torture. Mason turned their home into a fortress, adding 3 more stone-faced guards to the perimeter. Damon's day was just a series of cold commands and barked orders Avery couldn't even begin to understand. Night fell, sealing the house like a tomb, but the attack they were braced for never came. The silence just got deeper, louder, and way more creepy. At 1 in the morning, Damon finally broke it. "A fake out. They just wanted to freak you out." The who question haunted them for 2 days until the answer showed up on their doorstep. It was Gabriella, her face like a granite statue. "We need a meeting," she announced. "The 3 of us." They met in Damon's office, where the family matriarch looked small, weighed down by a weariness Avery had never seen. Without any build-up, Gabriella dropped the bomb. It was markup. The only sign it landed was Damon's jaw tightening. "What?" "He hired someone to scare her," she explained. "To make her run. He bet that if she vanished, you'd look weak to Lorenzo, creating a power vacuum for him to fill." "Your proof?" "Last night," Gabriella said, "he came to my house, hammered, and confessed the whole stupid plan. He thought it was funny, a slick move." Gabriella's face hardened. "Not slick, idiotic. And now he's a danger to our entire organization." Damon's question was instant. "Where is he?" "Handled. My people have him." Her eyes flicked from him to Avery. "But this is far from over, Damon. Marco's desperate, which makes him a loose cannon. The real fight starts after Lorenzo is gone. You need to be ready." "I am." "No," she cut him off. "You're compromised. This thing with her has made you a target." Damon shot to his feet. "Leave, Gabriella, I said leave." When she was gone, the silence was suffocating. Avery watched Damon pace, a man at war with himself, and she saw the exact second he lost the battle. The quiet shattered when his hand smashed against the desk. "This is my fault," he hissed. "How can you even say that?" "I'm the one who dragged you into this nightmare," he shot back. "I made you a target." He stopped, turning to face her. "You have to leave now while you still can. Take the money, vanish, wipe this entire life away." His voice was hollow, totally empty of what he wanted. "What I want doesn't matter." "It matters to me," she insisted. His reply was one single, painful question. "Why?" "I come from a line of broken men. I'm controlling. I've completely wrecked your life and put you in mortal danger. What possible reason could you have to stay?" She stepped forward, closing the space between them. She was so close she could feel the fear that was powering his anger. "Because you remember I like cheap vanilla creamer," she whispered. "Because you're the one who watches over me at night, the one whose kiss felt like the only real thing." Her voice shook. "And maybe I'm just tired of running. Maybe I'm choosing to stay, to face whatever is coming, no matter how scary it is. Even if it blows up in our faces, maybe you're a risk I'm finally willing to take. Damen just stared, confused like she was speaking gibberish. You're being irrational. Probably, she agreed, but I'm still here. His question was a dare. For how long? I can't say. Don't ask me for promises I don't have. Her fingers balled up the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. I am here with you. Isn't that enough? His words get lost in a kiss, not a gentle one, but a desperate one, like a drowning man gulping for air. Avery's response is just as chaotic, a flood of months of fear, confusion, and a desire she wasn't supposed to feel. When they break apart, their foreheads rest together in a moment of shared weakness. I don't know how this is supposed to work. Neither do I. We're probably going to fail. Maybe, but we'll face that failure together. This pact to go down in flames turns out to be dead on. 3 days after Gabriella's warning, Marco vanishes. He's not dead, Damen says, his voice like a doctor's, just reassigned. He was shipped off to a family estate in Italy with a very simple order: never return. The command came from Lorenzo's deathbed, his voice thin but his judgment final. Family does not put family in danger. Marco broke that rule. This was his punishment. Will he be safe there? Avery asks. Safer than here, Damen confirms. Our grandfather's mercy has its limits, but exile isn't a death sentence. Marco gets to live. He's just not one of us anymore. And his partner in crime? Handled. Avery knew better than to ask what handled meant, learning that some answers are better left in the dark. The entire mood of the house changed after that. The security team stayed, but the kind of tension had changed. Avery went from being a prisoner to an asset that needed guarding. The shift was small but huge. Damen stopped treating her like she was made of glass and started seeing her as a partner who could handle the grim reality. He talked about failed deals, about family members circling Lorenzo's throne like vultures, and about the nonstop power struggle where only strength gets you respect. You don't have to tell me this, Avery said one night. A real meal, just them, eating out of cartons with the staff gone. Actually, I do. You're in this world now. Completely. You have a right to know the danger. The forces we're up against. His eyes met hers, burning with something new. Yeah. The act between them was totally gone. Avery moved into his bedroom, though they spent a lot of nights just talking, mapping out the dark corners of their pasts. Damen talked about the horror of finding his father. Avery talked about the moment her mother's mind snapped, when she looked at her own kid like a stranger. They were showing each other their scars like holy relics, trying to build something real from the wreckage of their lives. There's something you need to know, Damen said one morning, as the sun poured in, lighting up the desert outside. Lorenzo's fading way faster than we thought. His doctors are talking weeks, not months. A rock formed in Avery's gut. I'm so sorry. Don't be. He's accepted it. He told me yesterday he was tired of fighting. Damen's hand found hers under the covers. But this speeds everything up. Everything is about to explode. The family will start making their plays. So I need your answer. Are you really with me? Once he's gone, there's no middle ground. You're either an ally or you're a target. How sentimental. I'm being practical. I know. Avery faced him. I'm with you, but I need one promise from you. What is it? When it's over, when you have the power and this craziness ends, you have to get out. Damen's face hardened. Out of what? The family business, the part that lives in the shadows. She gives him the only two ways out this life ever offers: a prison cell or a grave. Her face is dead serious. She tells him she refuses to watch him become a sacrifice to this violent inheritance. It's a deal breaker. He argues that you don't just quit this world. So she challenges him to be smarter, to build a new exit. He has the brains and the cold-blooded edge needed. Make a different path. Her voice cracks as she lays out her final card. Because I love you and I refuse to lose you to a life you never chose. The confession hangs there, said out loud for the first time. Damon's face runs through a dozen emotions, finally landing on total disbelief. Say that again, he breathes. He asks, which section? And she hits him with, the section where I love you. Then she lays it all out. I love you, even though you're a controlling freak with secrets and absolutely garbage taste in Chinese food. He tries to defend himself. My taste is impeccable. But she shuts him down cold. You ordered sweet and sour pork. That's a crime against humanity. Then, out of nowhere, he confesses, I love you too. The words sound like they just broke out of a 20-year prison sentence. He has no idea where it started. Maybe in the chapel, maybe at the hospital. Could have been yesterday. But it's real, and my dude is completely stunned. He asks how they're supposed to get through this without wrecking everything. Her answer, then we'll just smash it and rebuild it together. She seals it with a kiss. But you have to swear you'll try to escape this life before it completely owns you. He promises he will, but not yet. He's got a massive storm to get through first. That storm rolled in faster than they ever saw coming. By Tuesday, Lorenzo was dead. Avery was right there with him at the end. She'd been visiting the old Dawn a lot while Damon handled business. Lorenzo loved her company, telling her cleaned-up versions of his past, building an empire from scratch and molding his grandson into a cold, hard leader way too young. Lorenzo, his voice just a whisper, once told her, you're what he needs. You make him want to be a man, not just a king. Avery tried to argue. He's already a good man. But Lorenzo wasn't having it. No, he's the weapon I made. Sharp, cold, a tool. The old man's tired eyes locked on hers. But you're changing him. You're making him human again. Don't let him lose that when I'm gone. She promised he wouldn't. Lorenzo pushed. Swear it. Swear you'll protect the man inside the monarch. She swore. A tiny smile touched his lips. Good girl, then his eyes closed. For a second she thought he was just sleeping. Then the heart monitor flatlined and all hell broke loose as staff rushed in. A hand gently guided her out of the room. Damon shows up, looking white as a sheet, and they just hold each other while the medical team fights a battle they've already lost. It's over. Within hours, the entire clan descends like vultures. Gabriella is first, her face a perfect, unreadable mask. Marco's parents fly in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, a whole mob of strangers Avery's never seen before, just appear at the hospital, all of them dressed in black. And every single one of them is sizing up the competition like predators. The grief was real, sure, but the raw ambition simmering just underneath was just as strong. Lorenzo's death left a power vacuum, and you could feel the scramble for the throne begin. The funeral was a total spectacle, packed with hundreds of strange faces, politicians, CEOs, known criminals, and guys who looked legit, but definitely weren't. Up front, Damon's face is a perfect mask of grief as he gives a eulogy that sounded flawless but felt completely empty. Afterwards, he works the crowd, shaking hands, taking condolences, playing the part of the heartbroken heir. Avery watches the man she loves just vanish inside the performance. Later that night, back at their mansion, Damen finally shatters. There were no tears. She wasn't even sure he could cry. He just sat on the bed, head in his hands, his entire body shaking with grief, exhaustion, and pure terror. "I'm not ready for this," he finally choked out. Avery sat right next to him. No one ever is. He just needed more time. I needed more time. He gave you all he had, she shot back. He made sure you were ready. Damen looks up, his eyes totally raw. Did he? Because I don't feel ready. I feel like a kid playing king, and they're all about to find out I'm a fraud, she tells him. Then fake it till you make it. That's what I've been doing since I got dragged into this. And look where that got me, he snaps back. It got us here, still standing, together. That's more than most people get. He pulls her close, and they stay like that forever. No words, no plans, just holding on as the weight of their world tried to crush them. The will was read right after the service. Avery wasn't there. She was family by marriage, not by blood. So she waited at the mansion with Mason, her mind running through every possible disaster. With every hour Damen was gone, the pit in her stomach got deeper. When he finally called, 6 hours later, his voice was chillingly cold and empty. "Can you meet me? I need you here." She has Mason drive her, feeling nothing but a deep, sinking dread. The mansion is a complete war zone. She can hear screaming coming from Lorenzo's study. Someone's crying. Another is yelling about lawyers and betrayal. Mason steers her through the chaos to find Damen and Gabriella, who both look like they just walked away from an explosion. "What is happening?" Avery's voice is barely a whisper in the thick tension. Gabriella then drops the first of Lorenzo's posthumous bombshells. Damen is the sole heir to the entire empire, every asset, every single dollar. But there's a catch. A muscle jumps in Damen's jaw. "What condition?" he grinds out. "Our marriage," she says, "is now unbreakable. No annulment, no divorce." For the next 10 years, any attempt to split up would send the entire fortune to a family trust, leaving him totally powerless. Avery's world just cracked. The old man was playing chess from beyond the grave. With ice-cold precision, Gabriella reveals bombshell number 2. Lorenzo gave Avery complete control over all family finances and an equal vote in major corporate decisions. "He basically crowned you queen, Avery," Gabriella points out. "I don't want his money," Avery shoots back, "and that's not an option anymore." The money was now theirs, jointly as long as they stayed married for a decade. Gabriella's eyes flicked between them. "The family is, to put it mildly, freaking out. They're going to fight this. Legal challenges are coming. They're planning to make your lives a living hell." But Lorenzo's will was a fortress, built over his last 6 months to be legally airtight. "I need air," Avery whispered, and before anyone could stop her, she shoved through the furious crowd of relatives and bolted into the garden. The desert night was sharp and cold as she wrapped her arms around herself, gasping for breath. 10 years. Lorenzo had chained them together for a full decade. Part of her was disgusted by the cold-blooded move, but another part, the one that actually loved Damen, felt something else. Maybe it was security, or maybe it was permission. Lorenzo had basically ordered them to stop faking it. Damen finds her out there 20 minutes later, and they stand in silence, watching the neon glow of the Vegas skyline. "I'm sorry," he finally says. "For which part?" she asks. "For this. For the clause in the will, for dragging you even deeper into my world. He pauses, and for the fact that even my grandfather's love had a price tag. Maybe he was trying to protect us by forcing us to stick together. We would have stayed together anyway, Avery states, turning to face him. Wouldn't we? For the first time, Damon's poker face completely crumbled. I can't answer that without it sounding like I'm just following the will. Then pretend the will doesn't exist, she pushed. If he'd given you everything, no strings attached, would you still want me here? Yes. The word was instant, raw, and 100% real. Yes, I would want you to stay. I would beg you to stay if I had to, but I can't offer you a safe life. I can't offer you peace. All I can offer is to be better than the man this family made. And I'm offering to love you through that whole fight. That's enough, she says. As she takes his hand, he pulls her into a hug that's both fiercely possessive and incredibly protective. But you still have to find a way out of this life. You promised me. I remember, he confirms. I'm holding you to that promise. I know. The next few months were all-out war. The family split right down the middle. A few of Lorenzo's old crew cashed out and retired. The younger generation splintered, some siding with Damon, others plotting to take him down. In a crazy twist, Gabriella became his key ally, using her power to shut down arguments and neutralize the biggest threats. But the predators kept circling, still hungry for a fight. Some nights, Damon would come home looking like he'd just walked off a battlefield, staying completely silent about the dirty deals he had to make to keep his throne. Avery, seeing the war inside him, finally called him out on it. They were in bed, but he was 1,000,000 miles away, 1,000 battles playing out on his face. She whispered, I'm losing you to this. He shot back, I'm right here. No, you're not. You're a prisoner in your own head, making violent plans you hide from me, and I'm watching you become the exact monster you swore you'd never be. That hit the mark. He turned to her and finally confessed. We have a problem with the Castellanos. Victor's nephew thinks he deserves a bigger cut. This punk was trying to muscle in on what he thought was his cut. Avery, ever the optimist, asks, Can't you just give him a bigger slice? But Damien knew the game. Do that, and every shark in the ocean will smell blood. They'll all show up wanting a handout. I have to draw a line. What kind of line? Damien's face went cold. The kind that ends 6 feet under. No, Avery gasped, shooting up. You promised you were getting out, not digging a deeper hole for us. I am, but I gotta lock this down first. If I walk away now, it's chaos, and my people get hurt. And if you stay, you become Lorenzo's ghost, building the same prison, making the same deals, and in 20 years, you'll be telling our kid to run, just like your father told you. It's not that simple, he shot back. The world isn't about what's fair, but you've got a choice. Be the guy who shatters this cycle of violence, or the one who keeps it going. You can't be both. And just like that, they were in a cold war for weeks, fighting with quiet words that cut like knives. He was dead set on securing his empire first. She argued there would always be another crisis, another excuse to put their lives on hold. A total stalemate. Then a hitman made a play for Damien's life. It went down right after a meeting in Vegas. 1 second, he's walking to his car. The next, his bodyguard Mason is tackling him to the ground as bullets turn the windows into spiderwebs. The news hit Avery mid-lecture. She bolted to the hospital and found Damien already getting checked out. I'm fine, he said the second she stormed in. He had some nasty road rash on his forehead, but that was it. The shooter missed. Mason was faster. You are not fine. Someone just tried to murder you. Avery's hands were shaking so bad she had to ball them into fists. This was her worst nightmare, live and in person. I know, Damien said, pulling her into a hug, totally ignoring the nurse. I know. And you've been right this whole time. This is over. We're out. Avery was floored. Are you for real? 100%. I'm done. I don't care what I have to burn to the ground, what empire I have to sacrifice. I'm walking away. Could it actually be that easy? It is that simple. Because the idea of actually losing you, I'm not living in that world. But getting out of the mob isn't a quick exit. It's a slow, painful amputation that took a full year of backroom deals and strategic retreats. Damien cut off all the family's illegal rackets, leaving scraps for the vultures while saving the legit businesses. He built a legal firewall just thick enough to keep the feds away. It wasn't clean, not even close. Old loyalties died hard and debt still lingered, chaining him to a world of blood oaths and dark alleys. But a new day was dawning. It was enough for Damien to finally catch his breath, and for Avery to stop checking the news for his name. The family, predictably, went absolutely nuclear, hitting them with threats and lame blackmail attempts. It all blew up at Thanksgiving when Damien's uncle smashed a wine glass on his head, screaming he was spitting on Lorenzo's grave. But Gabriella enforced the will like a bulldog, and with the old guard on her side, the rebellion fizzled out. By the second anniversary of him taking over, Damien's corporate rebrand was complete. The Viscaris were now a legit, almost boring company, a change that would have made Lorenzo either beam with pride or spin in his grave. So how's this feel? Avery asked one night, breaking the silence. They were in their bedroom, which finally felt like a home instead of a fortress. She'd erased the mansion's cold history with photos and books, proof of a real life. It's weird, too quiet. I'm just waiting for the next bomb to go off. It's not going to. It always does. Not this time, she promised, leaning in to kiss him. We did it. Against all the odds, we made it. You say that like the war's over, Damien whispered, pulling her closer. I'm not sure it ever is, he admitted, but maybe that's what surviving is. Just deciding to stay when running is the easy way out. That's surprisingly profound. I'm a new man. No, you're not. I'm trying to be. You're getting there. 18 months later, they got married again, this time to wipe away the memory of some sleazy Vegas chapel. This time there was no contract, no lawyers, no escape clause. It was a real wedding, in a garden that had been cleansed of Lorenzo's shadow. And to everyone's shock, Gabriella actually cried. Avery wore a simple dress, and Damien wore a suit that screamed hope instead of power. I can't believe we're doing this again, Avery whispered under a canopy of flowers. Third time's the charm. This is our second time. I'm counting the courthouse run to make the drunk one legal. That's 3. That's not how math works. The officiant cleared his throat. Whenever you're ready. Then they said their vows, real words torn from their own messed up story, making promises they could finally keep. To pick each other every single day. After the I-dos, Damien kissed her like it was the first and last time. Was it worth it? He breathed against her lips. Ask me again in 50 years. I plan on it. Their life found a new rhythm, one that looked a lot like peace. Avery went back to teaching at a school funded by charity, not dirty money. Damien ran his legitimate empire from a home office, trading corporate power plays for quiet nights with his wife. Their whole relationship was a cycle of fighting and making up, of figuring out how to be partners with no script. Then one night, Avery dropped a bombshell. "I want a baby." Damien, ripped from his work, was completely blindsided. "A baby?" "Yeah, a tiny human. I'd like one." "For how long?" "The idea got serious about 3 months ago. I was worried how you'd take it." "Why would I?" Then it clicked. "You thought I'd say no. You don't exactly scream dad material." "My reputation has never matched my reality." He shut his laptop for good. "Are you sure you want a kid with me?" "It was only ever you." "You know this is going to be a total disaster, right?" "I have no idea how to be a father." "I'm guessing your old man didn't either. You'll learn." "We are going to screw this up so bad." "We're experts at that. We've got plenty of practice." 2 years later, Avery announced she was pregnant. It was a complete detour from their life of careful planning. When she told Damien, he looked like someone just handed him the entire universe. "Are you sure?" "I took 4 tests, all positive. 4. I'm thorough." He closed the distance between them and wrapped her in a hug. And for the first time she could remember, his hands were actually shaking. "We're having a kid," he said, his voice filled with pure awe. "A kid. I'm definitely going to break this person. And I'll be right there to help you fix it." She met his lips for a kiss. "We can break it together." Their daughter arrived on a Tuesday, screaming with her father's iron will and her mother's perfect timing. They named her Elena. The second that baby was put in Damien's arms, he fell apart. Tears streamed down his face as he stared at her, like she was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he'd ever seen. "She's so small," Damien whispered. "All babies are." "What if I drop her?" "You're not going to drop her." "What if she breaks?" "You are not going to break her. You're going to love her, protect her, and be so ridiculously overprotective she won't be allowed to date until she's 30. He fires back, 40. "Okay, fine, they negotiate. 35 it is." Damien's eyes flicked from Avery to Elena, totally lost. "I have no idea how to do this." She replied, "Me neither, but we'll figure it out. It's our thing." And they did, right in the middle of a beautiful hurricane of chaos. Elena was a tiny tornado, a baby who declared war on sleep for a solid year. Avery went back to teaching part-time, living in a haze of baby formula and daydreams about naps. Damien tackled fatherhood like a corporate takeover, devouring parenting books and obsessing over every milestone. "She smiled," he announced, walking in while Avery was trying to nap. "That was gas. She's 3 weeks old." He wasn't having it. "No, it was a real smile. I saw it." "It was gas," she insisted. "It was a smile. She smiled because she knows I'm her dad and she loves me." Avery deadpanned. "You have officially lost your mind." "I'm a father. It's the same thing." 2 years later, they added a son, Marco, to the crew. His name, a nod to Damien's cousin, was a calculated peace treaty that echoed through the family. His birth started to melt the old grudges. It's tough to hold on to old beef when there are grandkids to spoil, even the black sheep. Marco Sr. could show up for dinner without starting war. So the old boss says he's a new man in Italy with a wife and 3 kids, totally reformed. He gives Avery a legit-sounding apology, probably since she and Damien are the ultimate glow-up couple. Then tragedy strikes. Avery's mom passes away when Elena is 3, but Damien, he's her rock, the anchor in the storm, and that's when Avery realizes this insane, brutal, gorgeous life is the ultimate prize she was fighting for. Got any regrets, Tumskiru? She asks him one night, totally drained from 2 kids under 5. Damien's half asleep, but mumbles, "Yeah, what about?" She lists everything, the wedding, her choices, the beef with his family. The silence is so heavy she thinks he's out. Then he hits her with it. "I regret that night in Vegas." Her heart just stops. "Why?" he says. "'Cause we were so hammered we don't remember it. We lost that part of our story. But everything after." He turns to her. "Nah, not a single regret. You were the best damn chaos that ever happened to me." She scoffs, calling it a backhanded compliment, and he just grins. "And you still married me 3 times. Their banter is still elite. He calls her judgment a weakness. Her clapback? "So is yours. You married me." His reply, "Best damn decision I ever made." They fall asleep, tangled up together. Avery dreams about the trashy chapel and the disaster that somehow saved her entire life. Years fly by. Elena grows up fierce with her dad's grit and her mom's heart. At 7, she's already planning to be a lawyer for the underdog. Marco becomes the smooth operator, a charmer who could talk his way out of anything, but deep down, he's all compassion. "He's got your heart," Damien tells Avery. "That knack for seeing the good in people, no matter how buried it is." The mansion finally feels alive, filled with the kind of happy chaos money can't buy. Birthdays are insane. Halloween is a whole month-long thing, and Christmas morning is a wrapping paper war zone with kids up at 5 a.m. Damien starts getting silver in his hair. Avery finds new lines by her eyes and wears them like trophies. They launch a foundation in Lorenzo's name, helping families like theirs. And Damien goes at it with the same psycho-level focus he used to run his criminal empire. She watches the last of his emotional walls crumble, revealing the guy she always knew was there. They start giving kids a future, wiping out medical debt for struggling families. They do it all on the down low, not for clout, but to make sure nobody else has to face the impossible choices they did. For their real 10th anniversary, they ditch the kids with Gabriella and head back to that desert cabin. The kids come back hyped on sugar and knowing a very censored version of the family business. "Remember what you said to me here?" Avery's voice is a whisper by the fire. "I said a lot of things," he answers softly. "You said I was important." "You are," he confirms. "And you said you had nothing to give me." "I remember." "You were wrong. You gave me everything." She leans into him, into that spot that's only hers. "You promised you'd fight for us, and you never stopped. You're still fighting for a deal made at gunpoint. This is way more than I ever expected." Damien kisses her hair. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "I wasn't being straight with you that night. I said I didn't remember the wedding, but I did. Bits of it. I remembered you laughing at the Elvis impersonator's lame joke. I remembered you asking if I was sure this is what I wanted. And I remember saying yes and meaning it, even though I was drunk, reckless, and totally lost. I remember thinking you were the first real thing I'd touched in years. Then why lie to me? I couldn't have you feeling trapped. I needed you to choose me, for real, every single day. Not because of a contract or a will or one crazy night, just because you wanted to. And I do choose you every day, even when you drive me nuts. Especially then." They stay at the cabin for 3 days, hitting the reset button they didn't even know they needed. When they get back to Vegas, the whole city feels different, less intimidating. Or maybe they just leveled up and were ready for anything. Elena graduates high school at 17, a total force. She declares she's going to law school to stick up for the little guy. Avery sees herself in her daughter, that same fire. Harvard sends an acceptance letter. Damien actually chokes up leaving her there for freshman year. "She's gonna change the world," he says on the ride home. "She's got your fire. She gets it from both of us." Marco dives into the corporate world, picking green tech, building something clean and new, totally breaking the family's destructive cycle. At 23, he closes his first massive deal. He calls Damien, his voice shaking from the high. Damien talks him through the huge win. He tells Avery later it was the proudest moment of his life. More than when you were named heir? Not even close. Watching him build something that matters. That's the real legacy. The years keep coming. Gabriella passes at 89, sharp as a tack till the end. She dies in her sleep, and half of Vegas shows up for the funeral. The other half watches from a distance out of fear and respect. Damien gives the eulogy, and this time, everything he says about family and loss is 100% real. Over time, the family starts to spread out. Some stick around Vegas, others leave to start their own thing. The huge house gets quiet. In the silence, Damien and Avery find a peace they've come to love, a sanctuary just for them, finally free from all the drama. "We survived," Avery says one night, watching the desert sunset. Now in their 50s, things ache a little, but being together is still a choice they make every day. "We did. This was never meant to last." "Nope. But here we are." Damien takes her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. So, out of all that chaos, their whole deal just worked. Like two broken pieces of a rock smoothed out by a hurricane. Flawed and messy, but always picking each other. Every single day. Then Elena calls, screaming with joy after winning her first mega lawsuit, taking down a pharma giant for jacking up insulin prices. Hundreds of families got paid, and thousands were protected by new laws she pushed through. She's a mess of happy tears and laughter, and so is Avery, watching her daughter become an absolute beast. "You're a titan, kid," Damien tells her. "Well, I learned from the best," Elena shoots back. "Both of you." The call ends, leaving them in the quiet of their home, which is basically a museum of their 2 decades of insanity. The walls are covered in photos, with kids' drawings still taped up. A whole life built from the wreckage. Avery says it out loud. "You think Lorenzo ever saw this coming?" Damien just scoffs. "I think he just hoped. That's all any of us can do, right? Hope and keep pushing." Damien repeats it. Hope and keep pushing. And choose love when running is the easier option. Outside, Las Vegas glitters, a city built on broken promises. The same place they got hitched in a tacky chapel, the same city that almost broke them. The exact spot where they built something that had no business surviving. The massive diamond on Avery's finger, a souvenir from that wild first morning, catches the last bit of sun. She plays with the ring, a monument to a fake marriage that became her realest truth. Next to it is the simple gold band from their actual wedding. 2 rings, 2 vows, 1 bat-crazy love story. Out of nowhere, Damien says, "We should renew our vows." "We literally did that 10 years ago." "I know, I want to do it every 10 years. To remind ourselves what we're about." "That's completely ridiculous." "So was marrying a stranger in Vegas. We did that." Avery just laughs. "Fine. But I'm picking the place this time." "Deal." 6 months on, they're renewing their vows in that same garden, with the whole loyal crew that survived the chaos in attendance. Damen grabs Avery's hands and drops this gem. 20 years ago, I made a crazy call in a chapel at 3 a.m. I married a woman I'd never even seen, running on fumes, booze, and a prayer. And against all odds, it turned into this. It became love, a family, the life I actually wanted. Then Avery, without missing a beat, fires back. 20 years ago, I woke up in some stranger's house with a massive rock on my finger and pure terror in my veins. I was dead sure I'd made the biggest screw-up of my life. I was wrong. It was the best mistake possible because it got me here, to you, to this life, to everything real. They kiss, the kids cheer, the sun sets. It's the perfect scene. Not clean, not easy, but totally legit. That night, she hits Damen with a question. Ever wonder what would have happened if we'd gotten that annulment? If I'd just walked? Every single day. You do. I do. And every day I thank my lucky stars you stayed. Even when I'm impossible. Especially then, it means you're still here, still picking me. Always. And just like that, the years kept rolling. Elena got married at 32 to a woman who made her laugh and loved her fiercely. Marco tied the knot at 35 with his college sweetheart in a ceremony that had everyone sobbing. Grandkids started showing up 3 and 5 years, and the quiet mansion was suddenly buzzing with holiday chaos again. Damen finally retired at 65, handing off the legit businesses and making Avery his new full-time gig. They traveled, read books, and watched sunsets from their terrace, talking about everything and nothing. Now and then, Avery would catch him just staring at her. "What?" she'd ask. "It's nothing, just insanely glad you're here." "Where else would I be?" "I don't know, anywhere. You could have been anywhere, but you stayed right here with me. There's no other place I'd ever want to be." For their 30th anniversary, he takes her back to ground zero, the chapel where their whole wild story kicked off. It looks smaller to Avery now, its cheap glamour worn down to something real and gritty. The same old Elvis impersonator is still on stage, his voice rough with time. "Damen, why are we here?" Avery whispered. "Because I needed to remember the feeling of that night before everything got so damn complicated. Life was already complicated then." "Fair point." Damen squeezed her hand tighter. "But I wanted to stand here with you, sober this time, and tell you that if I had to do it all again, the contract, the lies, the fear, the war, I would. In a heartbeat. Because every single step of it led me straight to you. You've gotten soft in your old age." "I'm not old. We're 70. That's not old. It's vintage." Avery's laugh rumbled as she pulled him in. "I'd do it all again, too. Every single piece. Even the broken parts. Especially those parts. They made us who we are." In that budget chapel with the ghost of their younger selves looking on, they said their vows one more time. Not for some minister or for a crowd, just for them. 2 souls who had weathered every possible storm and were still on their feet. "I love you," Damen said. "I know. Still, always. Even when I'm old and a pain in the ass." "Most of all then." They stepped out into the Vegas night, a city of broken dreams holding the only one that ever paid off. The city was the same, but they were completely different people. They had become things they never planned on. Partners, lovers, parents, and finally grandparents. They had become each other's sanctuary. And that, in the end, was the whole story. Not the reckless gamble of a wedding, or the brutal empire. Not the danger or the drama or the insane odds. It was just the story of 2 people who made a terrible choice in a neon chapel and against all logic grew it into a love that would not die. They lived, they fought, they rebuilt, they chose each other over and over, especially when it was hard. And 30 years after a morning of sheer panic, Avery woke up to total peace. Dahman was right there, his hair silver, his face a map of the life they'd lived together. He was still her anchor, her constant, her choice. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning. Coffee. Always." They would get up together, a routine perfected over 30 years, and face another day, another chance to make the same choice, another day to prove that from a complete disaster, something incredible can rise. The ring on her finger glinted, catching the light in 1,000 tiny rainbows. The same exact ring, its promise finally cashed in by time. She once woke up staring at a total stranger. Now she woke up beside the man who knew every single piece of her soul. He had seen the absolute worst parts of her and never once looked away. The man who, with her, built a life from the ashes, with guts, and a slurred "I do" in a chapel. Their world was never perfect, but it was theirs. And that was enough. Way more than enough. It was everything. Model.
Life lesson: unhealed trauma does not disappear inside success. It reorganizes itself into control, hypervigilance, and emotional distortion. From a clinical perspective, the relationship begins not as romance but as a convergence of pathology under pressure. He presents as highly controlled, effectively restricted, strategic, and interpersonally dominant. These traits, while adaptive within criminal hierarchies, are also consistent with trauma conditioned functioning. A child exposed to violent loss often learns that emotional openness is unsafe, unpredictability is lethal, and attachment must be managed rather than trusted. In adulthood, such an individual may confuse control with care and provision with intimacy. That appears to be precisely his configuration. He constructs a marriage as one would construct a legal firewall: terms, obligations, optics, compliance. This is not because he is incapable of feeling, it is because feeling for him has long been associated with destabilization. Therefore, he seeks to make attachment contractual. The psyche often prefers domination to vulnerability when vulnerability once led to helplessness. She enters the dynamic from the opposite axis: financial desperation, caretaker fatigue. Chronic stress and grief over a mother's cognitive decline have eroded her autonomy. Under such conditions, decision-making is frequently narrowed by survival cognition. One does not need to invoke pathology to explain her consent, but one must recognize coercive pressure. A desperate nervous system is not fully free, it is triaging. What makes the bond psychologically compelling is that both individuals mistake their adaptations for identity. He believes he is simply pragmatic. She believes she is simply enduring. In truth, both are operating from injury. He has built a self that avoids abandonment by controlling variables. She has built a self that survives instability by tolerating what should not be tolerable. This is how trauma bonds often emerge, not because two people are destined, but because each recognizes the other's damage as strangely familiar. The family system intensifies this. The patriarchal structure rewards emotional coldness, strategic loyalty, and performative masculinity. Such environments often produce narcissistic defenses, especially in male heirs expected to embody invulnerability. To be clear, grandiosity is not always loud. Sometimes it appears as the absolute conviction that one can orchestrate people's lives for their own good. That is still a narcissistic injury response. It is not love in its mature form. It is control-seeking moral justification. She, meanwhile, exhibits a pattern common in trauma-adjacent attachment. She begins by resisting, then adapting, then humanizing the source of threat because total psychological rejection would make the environment unbearable. This does not invalidate her emotions. It explains their complexity. Affection can coexist with fear. Dependency can blur moral judgment. That is precisely why these narratives are so haunting. The important shift occurs when both parties begin to mentalize accurately. He recognizes that he has treated her as a solution rather than a subject. She recognizes that his coldness is not absence of feeling, but dysregulated feeling hidden beneath elite behavioral control. Once those recognitions emerge, the relationship has a chance to become ethical rather than merely intense. Still, one must be precise. Love does not cure trauma. Insight does not erase risk. Behavioral change is the only convincing evidence of psychological transformation. And here the story offers its most important lesson. Healing becomes believable only when the subject relinquishes the system that made his maladaptation profitable. His decision to step away from illegitimate power matters more than any confession of love because it demonstrates restructuring rather than sentiment. Thus, the enduring psychological lesson is simple and severe. Trauma unresolved will eventually seek architecture. It will build empires, rules, contracts, and identities designed to prevent re-injury. But those structures often reproduce the very emotional violence they were meant to avoid. Recovery begins when an individual tolerates the unbearable fact that to be loved safely, one must first become safe to love.